Citizen Kane is said to be one of the greatest films ever made. That may seem like an obvious statement, but it really did change the way films were made. The creator and star, Orson Welles, was a genius. But despite this being a masterpiece, I do believe there are some criticisms to be made. After all, not every film was perfect, and Citizen Kane is no exception. Now, I'm sure what people had in mind is a quote-unquote plot hole at the beginning. Like, how did people hear about Rosebud when no one was around? I'm not going to talk about that. But I think my input could be considered extreme to others. I think one addition that could be heavily improved in this film is the inclusion of Winnie the Pooh and his friends. Like when during Kane's downfall, you get the reactions by Piglet or Tigger, all throughout the movie as if they were friends. And thinking about it would actually fill up the plot hole, right? But not just them, but the My Little Pony cast as well. When I see media like this, I admit to expressing little to no emotion. But adding Rainbow Dash will help me stop and absorb the story. And I also think the film's quality would be greatly improved just by adding in Tom the Tank Engine. Oh, and the Wiggles, we can't forget about the Wiggles, and Pokemon, Bob the Builder, Yogi Bear, oh, and the Power Rangers. But it is still a black and white film, so maybe we'll just stick with Optimus Prime instead. And I think with all the additions I mentioned, would make the film a lot more watchable. If only there was a way to do that. Oh my god, it's like it was made for me!
Gotta get up, gotta get going. I'm gonna see a friend of mine. He's round and he's fuzzy, I love him because he's just Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh Bear. Looking for fun, chasing some honeybees. Pooh Bear, I know he's out there. Rumbling, tumbling, climbing a honey tree. But never ends for us, we're so adventurous. Feast every now and again. And when we're alone and there's nobody home, it's nice to be able to count on a friend like Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh Bear. Wherever you go, oh, won't you take me please, Pooh Bear, I gotta be there. It's me and it's you, my silly old Winnie the Pooh.
Okay, I'm sorry for giving you all a stroke with the intro. I thought it was funny. Before I start this video, no, this does not have anything to do with the Winnie the Pooh show, nor does it have anything to do with the main Wikipedia for the franchise. So we won't be hearing about Eeyore's foreskin or anything like that. And this episode is going to be really unique because we're not talking about a specific person either, but multiple people in this crossover community. Crossovers are an interesting concept, by taking unrelated IPs and having them meet face to face with each other, usually for a movie or a special. I think my first exposure were when the Flintstones meet the Jetsons. Then there's stuff like comic books where it's pretty much commonplace, rather it be on the pages or on screen. It's a popular, yet somewhat uncommon trope, mostly limited by copyright. The MCU had to deal with it for years. But before that, one of the earliest cinematic universe was the Universal Monster movies. Oh, and not to mention video games. Super Smash Bros. And their clones are absolutely notorious for it. So there's no surprise there's tons of fan art, let alone communities, based around this concept. But the most bizarre, and probably the most laziest, can be found within the Winnie the Pooh crossover community, where they will take a movie, a well-known movie, and edit in numerous different characters as if they were actually there. Despite, of course, the backgrounds and animation styles being totally different. Say, for instance, Beauty and the Beast. Now, what they would do, they would take the movie and add in clips of Winnie the Pooh, with most of them being reactions or small jokes.
Oh dear, mercy me.
Oh dear, mercy me too.
And stitch them together to the main movie, kinda like how I described in the main intro. And if the characters need to communicate with each other, the video will be muted with text. So you could read in their own voice, I suppose.
It appears this step is safe, but noisy. Shall I go on, Robert? Tigger?
Oh, hello.
Oh.
Oh dear, are you all right?
Me? No, I'm not talking.
Now you might be thinking if any of this would change the plot of the movie in some way. A talking stuffed bear or a walking tiger might shake up the plot of numerous movies. But in actuality, they just serve as pointless side characters, who are just there for the sake of it. I should also know that this community has been around for a long time. Now, unlike most other YouTubers who talked about this community, they would usually only look at a few scenes in one part and call it a day. And I understand, since there's really not a lot to talk about. Now, since I did a long analysis video on Bloodshot the Hedgehog, I gotta be better. Or gonna be worse, not really sure. Anyways, I've seen all the movies I could really find on YouTube, which is not a lot. It's pretty obvious that YouTube's been cracking down on this for quite some time. So thankfully, I have the speed up feature and a Game Boy emulator on my side to make the experience less terrible. A lot of these were movies I could have gone on throughout my life without experiencing. I didn't need to see the Equestrian movie, but I did anyways. Granted, with a few Winnie the Pooh clips sprinkled in. Now usually, when I talk about cringe art pieces, I like to talk about the characters, but I don't think that's appropriate here. Since for one, Winnie the Pooh and friends are already well-established characters. Not only that, but they aren't the only property the community uses in the crossovers. Majority of the time, they'll include a handful of other properties alongside them, which is what makes this whole fanbase even more bizarre. So I'll just talk about the most common IPs I see in these videos. I think the most obvious is, of course, My Little Pony. My Little Pony has been around for decades, but the fourth generation got really popular on the internet. I blame the slice of life animes. Gen 4 wouldn't be so popular if it weren't for those meddlesome schoolgirls talking about food. Now on the Disney side of things, I've seen Timon and Pumbaa constantly used, but it's not just them, but Simba too. Usually as an adult, so that means there's a giant lion eating the protagonist the entire time. I also see Jiminy Cricket a lot. I'm guessing that has something to do with Kingdom Hearts, since he was one of the main Disney characters involved in Sora's quest. Throughout the entire franchise, Jiminy stays inside Sora's hoodie getting motion sickness. Oh yeah, and you have those vultures based on the Beatles, I think. And they seem to be very popular for some reason.
So what we're gonna do?
I don't know. Hey, now don't start that again.
Yeah, you'll see that in every video. Then there's of course Pokemon. You'd think many of these characters' problems could be solved by these multiple monsters with superpowers. But what do I know? I think probably the most oddest use of Pokemon was in a Scooby-Doo movie, and for no particular rhyme or reason, they just include Mewtwo. Just flat out Mewtwo. Now, I would imagine this was before their marriage with Chris Chan. I mean, I guess this is what the dimensional merge would look like.
Daniel and Russell, these are our friends from America. Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy.
And Scooby-Doo!
Unfortunately, with all these characters, there's no scene where the main protagonist gloats about hanging out with a giant lion or Mewtwo. There's also the gang from Land Before Time. Now, how Littlefoot and his friends are able to go to modern times is a mystery. Possible plot hole. And of course, there's Optimus Prime. I could imagine by simply adding an Optimus Prime could improve anything in theory, but in action I don't think it works. I also think Prime could have stopped that Sunshine Glimmer, or whatever, from the Equestrian movie. I never grew up with Transformers, but I'm sensing some disrespect here.
You're from an alternate world and you're a pony princess there, and the crown actually has a magical element embedded in it that helps power up other magical elements, and without it, they don't work anymore, and you need them to help protect your magical world. And if you don't get the crown tonight, you'll be stuck in this world, and you won't be able to get back for like a really, really long time.
Sometimes I see Mordecai and Rigby, which could be disastrous because things don't go well with some around. Oh, and there's Ronald McGoddamn Donald just because. Family Guy is also a common occurrence. Why? I don't know. I can't reason with this madness anymore. Now, these are some of the common ones I've seen from the ones left on YouTube. Other properties that come to mind include the Tom the Train franchise. Alongside, of all things, the Wiggles being even more infamous. Now, this all sounds freaking insane. This would mean the main character of whatever movie is walking around with a classroom full of people of various size, powers, and species. Which would be the implication of these edits, right? Well, yeah, that would be the implication of these edits. Absolutely. You know, I made this picture as a way to show how insane these edits actually imply, but I think I accidentally made a genuine crossover cover. I even had space at the top for the title card. of Pooh's Adventure of fucking whatever, man. It should also be noted that there are different forms that these videos take. Some of them have multiple IPs, others will have simply one. One video had a Pokemon crossover with a Thomas the Train movie, and it would cheaply add in Jirachi in the plot.
Why is she locked up?
She isn't. She's safe from harm. Long ago, I made a mistake as lady's caretaker. An evil diesel found lady and threatened to destroy her. He chased her, used up all her coal. He made her go too fast, and then he crashed her. And I brought her here. I tried my best to fix her up.
And I know about the magic railway. And when I find that engine...
And when Jirachi does show up, they are fully voice acted.
Mr. Conductor, are you alright?
Did you put all this here for me?
Yes, I did.
But you must have known that I was coming. How kind of you.
By the way, what's even more frustrating is it's not even the boomer cut. Of all the characters I want to see cut in, he's not even in it. Now that being said, there are other YouTubers who would add themselves into the crossover, or their crossover persona. Though, unlike other crossovers, I imagine most of these are deleted not by copyright, but rather by choice. They should probably just stick to ripping off the Nostalgia Critic. Now, you would think at one point this would be a higher bar, right? I mean, when the bar is so low, it really wouldn't matter if it's just less than a few inches higher. There are some that try to be a little transformative and try to make their own story using stock clips, but those ones are a lot more rare. One of them includes Winnie the Pooh meets Digimon. I only bring this up for one specific reason, and that involves 9/11.
It started back when...
What?
Hey everyone, I think I found a better title for the cover. If only I made the video earlier. I never really grew up watching the Transformers, but when people watch the original Michael Bay movie, I imagine it's with the boys or with their family. Now, it may not be the most family appropriate film, but I'm sure the dad would like it. Though I don't know what this says about me if I'm watching it this way. This is probably one of the more stranger ones I've seen. Well, they're all pretty strange, but this one takes the cake. Because it mixes cartoons with the Michael Bay style of filming. And it actually meshes very poorly, to the point where it's actually kind of hilarious. It's still the same movie, but it appears that Shia LaBeouf's classmates also includes ponies and trains too. And it can lead to some pretty odd situations, like when Shia LaBeouf gets arrested, and he is scolded by Sir Topham Hatt.
Masturbating?
However, there's nothing on that Megan Fox scene people like to complain about. Would have been hilarious. Also, Nick Fury and Princess Celestia are part of Section 7.
Sir, you gotta figure out some way to get word out to him. Let's move.
Good luck, my little ponies.
Now, many of these movies would also try to add in some pointless subplots, mostly for just adding in new villains that don't belong in the movie. For this one, they mixed in an episode where Fluttershy tries to be assertive, because of that scene where Ironside tried to shoot the dog. This is my first time actually watching the Michael Bay Transformers movie, and I guess I could say I've seen it in the most dumbest way possible. I like to imagine this is a simulation on what it's like to be Black Noir on a daily basis. One rare variant of crossovers includes replacing individuals of a movie with multiple characters from other movies. In this case, they'll play the entire Aladdin movie, but the footage of the main character is played by Tigger. Jasmine is played by Kinga, and Jafar is played by the cat from the Fievel movie. And the genie is played by this cat from My Little Pony. I don't even know what it is. I could look it up, I just don't want to. Now I bring this one up for a very good reason, because it looks like these kind of videos specifically have a lot of effort put into it. Keep in mind, you have to watch the original movie and cut any time a character talks or does anything, which I also imagine is an hour and a half long. Not only that, you also need to find all the clips of whatever character you're replacing them with, such as Simba or the Five-O villain, and Tigger too, which also means they had to go through multiple movies and TV shows of Winnie the Pooh, just to get all the Tigger scenes. Then you would have to rewatch the Cut Aladdin movie again, just to insert those clips in, while also making sure they make sense within the context of the story, I guess. Huh. And here's me sitting and watching the game dude playing with dinosaurs was time consuming. I think this person should edit videos that are, well, not this. As for how the other movies are edited, well, they're kind of a mixed bag. Keep in mind, many of these videos are in multiple parts. Some parts could have occasional edits, while others can be over-edited, I suppose. And then you would have some parts with very minimal to no editing at all. Like some parts could just be the movie itself. And there's one movie where it's Winnie the Pooh and friends going to a scary forest, and the first few parts are literally the movie playing out. So I could just imagine there's some poor schmuck sitting there watching the actual movie, and then in part 5, it's just a bunch of freaking anime characters showing up for no reason. Also, plot-wise, it gets even wilder because the reason Pooh and friends go to that scary forest is because they misread school as skull, which makes sense because they're stuffed animals who don't know how to read. But it also implies that the anime characters they chose for this movie are dumb as shit. One of the bigger attractions to this crossover series is the Wikia itself. Because there's so many projects connected to these unrelated characters, it can add some very odd and funny results. Like Pooh having tons of friends, though I think they got lazy on the editing page. Most of the Wikia talks about other spin-off projects. So it could not just be Pooh, but other characters like Yogi or Bob the Builder. And there are some very odd choices for films, like the Pooh Adventures of Jaws, or one of the more stranger, Pooh's Adventure of the Song of the South. And you have the South Park movie and Stand By Me, two movies well known for their profanity. So the Pooh Adventures movie would have these movies to be censored, like what the hell? And there's also Pooh Adventures of the Star Wars movies. Well, up until The Force Awakens. I guess they didn't like The Last Jedi either. I mean, it clearly isn't the Force diversity. This person's added in 6 other female characters. So it has to be the writing. So what does it say when this person doesn't like The Last Jedi? What does it say about society? They would post transcripts of their movies. 95% I think are the actual scripts of the official movie. All cut and pasted. I know there's a version of Pinocchio that exists, but with Ash and Mario as the main characters, and looking at the transcript, this doesn't fit Mario's speech patterns. And I think the most strangest article I found was one of Princess Yuna, the fan character daughter of course, Princess Luna, and Hero from Thomas the Train. What? The Weekenders meet Prince of Egypt. And there's a whole bunch of anime shit in there too. Don't mind me just putting this in the non-fiction section. There are times where you go on the Wikia, and you find memories of old shows you liked. Like, hey, there's Superhuman Samurai Squad. And I guess they edited all the episodes with Winnie the Pooh and whatever. Arrow is a wonderful show, but it could use some more ponies and trains, said this guy.
Not like Green Arrow. Like, dude goes to Brony conventions dressed in the back half of Twilight Sparkle with a 4-inch wide butthole drilled in the costume.
Maybe it's so we can breathe properly.
You actually believe that shit? He has an insane story for every single superhero.
No, I actually heard that's true about Green Arrow, but that's the first thing he said that's real.
I think it's pretty obvious that the preference for a lot of these are kid shows. So you won't see a movie or show aimed towards an older audience unless it was a superhero property. That feel of No Pooh's Adventure of Memento. How else am I gonna watch this movie? Wait a minute, I just gotta check something. Oh, seriously? I checked and see if there was a Suicide Squad movie, and this is all I could find. And these covers look really crazy. Some of them have a shit ton of effort put into them, while others aren't even trying. I guess they were too young to figure out the transparency in paint. And this one looks even crazier, with dozens of IPs used like some sort of Infinity War grand battle. Is it all just reused clips? Are there tons of voice acting? How long is it in full? How can you juggle this many characters? The Russo brothers did a very major feat in the Infinity War movie, so what's going on here? Though I feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment. Most of the time, the Wikia is just advertising other projects, so it's hit or miss. So why is it like this? What's the inspiration for many of these videos? Well, at first, one might think of the most obvious choice, Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is one of the more popular crossover games outside of Super Smash Bros., where it would cross over with famous Disney properties with Square Enix's more anime-inspired Final Fantasy games. And it's probably the inspiration for at least a few other crossover art on DeviantArt, good or bad. A good chunk of the time it goes through the movie, but they add in Sora, Donald, and Goofy in the plot, regardless of how off-putting it might be. And the Disney levels do seem similar to these, right? But surprisingly, there's actually very few Kingdom Hearts Pooh crossovers. So I had to find a little more, and I think I found another potential answer. And I think the real main inspiration for this would be Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue was a crossover in the very early 90s. It had plenty of cartoon characters at the time, including Alvin the Chipmunks, Ninja Turtles, Muppet Babies, and of course, Winnie the Pooh. Now, what it really was a drug PSA warning kids about the dangers of marijuana, with an opening by George Bush. The story revolved around a kid being addicted to drugs, but these random cartoon characters help him out and save the day. Now that I say it out loud like that, I think he's probably taking something stronger than marijuana. This may seem like an obvious choice, maybe too obvious. I mean, if you weren't around when the special aired, you probably remember when the subject critic reviewed it. But this special is a lot more closer to the videos, similar structure and similar premise. In exchange of a story about the dangers of marijuana, you'll just put in your average Disney movie instead. This is also made even odder considering the fact that many of the people in this crossover community seem to really like Doug Walker. Though even I admit it's a bit of a reach that they made an entire community out of that one review he did. Is it a coincidence? Is it a stretch? I do think in some way, shape, or form, the All-Stars cartoon did inspire the first people involved, nostalgia critic or not. But at least you won't see this behavior in the AVGN fanbase. After all, he has warned the world about Doug Walker's crimes, but no one listened. So yeah, it seems that whatever universe these crossovers are in are a very cartoony one, where nothing would seem out of the norm. Rather it be talking animals, talking ponies, talking trains. That being said, I'm pretty sure there's train tracks everywhere too. Now I'm sure you noticed throughout the entire video that I make little jabs about how unrealistic or impractical many of these crossovers can be. And I know to some people that may seem just as weird, but there's a point to it. Because these crossovers don't have that logic. Because it's literally just whatever movie shoving in so much crap, no rhyme or reason. Like, no creativity at all. And I've seen 20 of these freaking things. But while I get that crossovers are great, and I understand that Pooh and Thomas or whatever have some very decent writing to some extent. Well, at least I would imagine. But is there some aesthetic that these shows have that you feel that these Disney movies are missing? I don't know. There's been plenty of controversies on YouTube regarding fair use in other genres. The most controversial, however, being reaction videos, specifically on YouTuber Jinx or certain Twitch streamers, where the transformativity is a lot more questionable. Now, I don't think I need to be an expert to tell you that these videos probably aren't fair use. A lot of them are barely transformative at all. You'd think there would be some pirating shenanigans going on, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I wouldn't appreciate getting interrupted by Winnie the Pooh. And what, was going to kiss cartoons such a hassle? Like, come on. Many of the films, if not posted on YouTube, will be on Google Drive. And even then, a lot of them are deleted. And no, this is not lost media. I mean, maybe the ones with the voice acting, probably, but the basic ones are not. If I just cut together footage of well-available shows, and mute them and add in text, post it on YouTube and then delete it, is that really lost media? It's just stretching the definition there. So I've talked at great lengths of what they like, on the Wikipedia and whatever, but what is this community made of? Like, who even are these people? Well, I think it's one of those strange fandom rabbit holes, with fanfiction being the classic one, while others like DeviantArt or Sonic fan characters being the more embarrassing ones. And this is no exception. Many of them were probably younger, teens to early 20s, that may or may not be autistic. And when they get older, they'll probably look back at this and cringe, as they move on to something else. God, I hope so. and just like Sonic fan characters, the reasoning could just be limitations. But in this case, pre-existing clips becoming their own canvas for this type of genre, which is even more limiting to the imagination, because you can't even make a proper story. There's only so much you could do with what's given. And I think the choice of using other clips was intended as a way to make it look official, although for numerous reasons that hasn't worked. Although, if there were means to go another way, like art that's better presentable and easy to make, that would have been more preferable instead than what's going on now. And I think they'll agree to that. Now, unlike the recolor stuff, this stuff is a lot more worse or extreme, to a point where it may be a bit concerning. Like, is this some sort of dependency or something? Like, what is it? I have no clue. But for real, like, is this some dependency? Like, can you not watch a show without any of these characters? Like, I don't understand it. While I do think it's somewhat on par with bad Sonic fan characters, something doesn't feel right here. Something feels more off than all the other stuff I've seen. Sometimes it's like I'm entering in some darker rabbit hole in some form of low-functioning autism with a dash of mental illness. I am probably just overthinking it too much. And it's something a lot more mundane. It's just the amount of children's media I see used makes it a little uncanny. Anyways, these movies are harmless, really, unless you're a simp for copyright law, I guess. But don't harass anyone and don't be a snitch. That should go without saying, but maybe not. And part of me likes to think that there's something positive here, even in bad communities like these. So what does Pooh Adventures have? I mean, I guess basic editing, but there's a lot of room for improvement. And I'm sure you probably noticed that the aspect ratios are very inconsistent. Though I would imagine at least one of these people are working for some YouTube essayists, I guess. How could these movies improve? Well, that's a hard question. Like, even if it was a little more transformative, it's still going to be made fun of. So it's kind of a lost cause there. I mean, you could just write fanfiction. I mean, that's very common. You can do anything you want there. But I think there's a need for something more visual to these people. And they're better off with the media we're getting now. In my opinion, I think a lot of the crossover niche is kind of filled. I mean, look around with a lot of the games these days. There's tons of characters and unrelated properties walking around. I think the reasoning for many of these videos is they want more crossovers, so I guess they got their wish here. And more recently, you have the multiverses game. Even some of the movies like that. Like, Roger Rabbit was great, now there's a bunch of similar movies, with a lot less charm, and it's more annoying. And these games will go even crazier by having Goku interact with LeBron James and Harley Quinn. I mean, it's just so odd to see Walter White being the Waluigi of the multiverses games. And before all that, you had Disney Infinity, which I imagine this community loves, since it's mostly Disney stuff. However, just like many other fads, there is bound to be fatigue. So I'm sure if these game companies are at a low, I think My Little Pony and Tom of the Tank Engine might re-energize that user base. Twilight Sparkle and Fortnite, make it happen. Does that make any sense? I don't know anymore. I've lost my sense of reason during the making of this video. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And want to see something really stupid? I've been playing this ROM hack for most of the movies I see, Pokemon Jupiter, raise all the Pokemon up to a high level, and look, this thing's not even a freaking Pokemon. And I'm at the Elite Four, and this is the first one. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. There's no way to progress. I can't surf, I can't go anywhere. It's ridiculous. It's so dumb. Like, it's not Chaos Black bad, but this is just so freaking stupid, and I wasted so much fucking time on fucking nothing. So hey, if you are watching the video and think I'm a dick, I guess I got the karma. I watch all these stupid freaking movies for nothing. I am so mad. I am so pissed. Well, at least I saw the Transformers movie. God damn it.